Welcome to the Richmond Public Schools Governance Committee meeting. Ms. Lilly, will you read in the electronic statement?
Sure. This meeting is being held as an electronic meeting pursuant to and in compliance with Richmond City Council's Ordinance 2020-093, adopted April 9th, 2020, and extended by Ordinance number 2020-183, adopted August 20th, 2020, and by Ordinance number 2020-232, adopted December 14th, 2020, and the school board's resolution approved on April 20th, 2020. Simultaneous translation is being provided in Spanish via Zoom, and the meeting notice contained information on how individuals needing translation services could obtain the service. The meeting notice also stated that the meeting would be a virtual meeting and would be live streamed for the public on the school division's Facebook page, and the link was provided. The agenda of the meeting was posted to board docs. After roll call, we will state how many board members are participating at this time. Dr. Harris Muhammad, Ms. Page,
Here.
Ms. White,
Present.
Ms. Jones.
Here.
Ms. Jones, you have 3 members of the committee present at this time.
All righty, thank you. Okay, so what we wanted to do before we begin moving forward, wanted to just do a little recap of our last meeting. And a part of our last meeting, we, kind of went through a lot of what already existed as it relates to board policy, reviewed samples of several governance manuals, and we decided that we would, lean more into what we consider ours to be a strategic governance manual, so that would also reflect the Dreams for RPS strategic plan. We also talked about our governance training that was coming up on June 22nd, which we just had that on Tuesday. And so as a part of this meeting, we will review those norms, because part of those will be, well, they were adopted, but we all agreed that there were several highlighted areas that we still needed to look at and review, and that we would do that as a committee outside of the meeting for the sake of time. And then just, finalizing all of those pieces and coming up with a draft for review, and then I'll be ready to a draft for review that we'll share with the board chair and the committee, and then we'll share it for the school board meeting on Monday, June 28th. So for starters, did everyone have the opportunity to review the policies that Ms. Lilly had sent to all of us? I said on Tuesday that I thought it was 7, but it was actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It was actually 13 policies. And many of them were really centered around what our governance manual will, be focused on, and what will pretty much be the meat and potatoes of the governance manual. I want to run through them just a little bit, just in case there are any that we feel we don't want to add, now that we're back as a committee, because I know we all looked at them individually. And so if there were any that we didn't want to add, and then there was the one policy that was added after the fact that Ms. Lilly shared with us on public participation. So I just wanted to run through, I won't read them all. I'll just give you the policy number and the title. And as we go through those, we can decide which ones we want to keep that will also be as a part of the manual. So the first policy is 1-1.3. which is duties and powers of school board members. Are we fine with that? Ms. White, cool? Okay.
Fine with that one.
Okay. 1-1.5 with the school board procedures and standards of conduct. We cool with that one?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. White?
I do have a question with that.
Absolutely.
Based on our governor's policy that we were, when we were discussing. Now, dealing with the 1-5 and dealing with our governors, I think the last part was the violations. How would that fit in?
Yeah, so as a part of the conduct, that also highlights the school board operational procedures, self-evaluations, and addressing violations. And so I think we can align that with the norm. So we can use the school board policy as a part of, like the title, and then we can put the norm to address it. But the part of the violation was the one that we agreed that we were gonna go back and discuss further. So I think we should kind of mirror the policy to those violations.
Right, because those violations we need to work on those violations. They don't mirror anything in that policy to me.
Absolutely. So when I share the norms and we look at those violations, we can come back to this policy and look at that. Okay, cool. All right. And then 1-2.4, which is orientation in service and professional development. Are we cool with that one?
Yes.
Okay. 1-2.5, compensation and expenses. Are we cool with that one?
Yes.
Okay. 1-3.1, school board organizational meetings. Are we cool with that one? Okay, Ms. Page?
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Jones, excuse me, what was the previous policy you just stated, called out?
1-2.5, compensation and expenses, or the one I just called out?
The one before.
1-2.4, which is orientation in service and professional development.
Okay. And this one is
1-3.1, school board organizational meetings.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, we good?
Yes.
Okay, cool. 1-3.2, school board chair and vice chair policy.
I'm not that cool about that.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm not is because this wasn't how it was really done.
Okay.
And then if you look in the Robert Rules of Order, it gives you different situations, the way that you can actually elect chair and vice chair. So this one leaves it a little open,
Okay.
a little open, but not specific. So I'm just letting you know how I feel about it.
Okay. And what we can do with that is when we get to the norms, we can do the same thing that we're going to do with the other policy that we feel we want to look at, just to see. Well, the chair and the vice chair norm just talks about how they lead the meetings and our, the leadership. But I think you're referring more to the election of leadership. Okay. And I think, I think for this purpose right now, that is maybe something we can, put up for discussion later, because any of the policies that we include in the manual can be subject for us to go back to review if there are changes or additions, deletions that we feel like we want to add.
So why would we have to change it if we're going to go back? Once it's in effect and it goes to VDOE, then this should be this should be included in our norms and policy, because this is what we're going to do. Starting January, we're going to do it back over again. So we shouldn't have to just insert something, just be, arbitrarily. We're just going to keep inserting things when this is probably the first thing that we actually did. This is the first thing that we actually did when we came on the board. And we're going to do it again the next year.
Yeah. So you have any recommendations on how you would like to handle that?
Well, I'm just going to put a star right there because you said we was going to come back, and then I'll just, because you're moving, so just let's keep on moving.
Okay, sounds good. I'll put a star next to it as well. Okay, 1-4.2, school visitations.
I think we put something in the norm for that.
Absolutely. And so that's what that was my point in terms of like reviewing the policies and then waiting until we did the norms, because the action that is a part of the norm is kind of predicated by the policy. So it's good to have both of them versus one, because if you just look at the norm, it just kind of tells you what we're doing. But if you review the policy or you attach the policy helps you understand why or how we got to that norm. You good with that one, Ms. White, or are you still looking?
I'm good. I'm going to the next one.
Okay. So 1-5.1, which is school board committees. And I know we've been talking a lot about, committees and the structure of committees. Again, that's another one, that can be revisited. And yes, we can submit this to VDOE with the caveat that we would like to review certain policies just to ensure that they continue to align with the manual, because some of them, I think we talked about in the first meeting, were a little outdated or hadn't been reviewed. Is that right, Ms. Lilly? Can we be able to do that? We maybe add a caveat that we would essentially want to look at certain policies going forward?
Yes, I mean, your manual is a living document.
Yeah.
And certainly it should be stable enough to be, what you abide by in most part. But yes, if a policy needs to be addressed, then you can do that. That's your function as the body. And certainly, when we look at the norms, we'll have to make sure that it doesn't conflict with any of your policies, because then you may need to change your policies. But yes, it's a breathing, living document in a sense that while, yes, this is what you have agreed to at this point in time, it is subject to change. Awesome. And then we can put that language in the preface or what have you of the document, if that's the desire of the committee and the board.
Okay. So I have a question, Ms. Jones.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're thinking about making some changes or modifications, as we talk about them, what's the rationale behind, wanting to make some modifications to the policy? Because just changing it, just to be changing it, to me, that seems there's no justification, or, like, have there been some concerns, or, what's the rationale behind making those adjustments to the policy?
Yeah, I think in order to, make sure that the manual is reflective of policy, but if we're creating the manual and we haven't fully addressed the policies beforehand, I think the best way to be able to do that is to just ensure that the policies align with the norms. Because again, we came in, we did, the governance training, but we didn't review policy. So now that we formed this committee, we are reviewing policy now. So we can't really do all the things. And so in order to, for the sake of time, to get the manual developed, it definitely is necessary that we may need to go back and look at a few policies. I don't think there's a real concern. I just think it's to make sure that we're in alignment.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
I have a question for Ms. Lilly. We do have a policy committee, don't we?
At this point, that has not been developed. You will have your second read, and in fact, on Monday, the second read of the revisions to policy 1-5.1 are coming forward to include a policy committee. So up to this point, no, there is no policy committee, but if you approve the policy on Monday, it adds a policy committee as your standing committee.
Yeah. And I do recall us talking about policy governance versus, or it was like policy finance or something.
Right. It was policy and governance together, but then the desire, I think, was to keep them separate at this point, but that may be revisited in the future as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, I can wait for mine until the policy committee then.
Okay.
We have a policy committee and they're going to look at each policy.
Okay. You mean, I'm sorry, Ms. Jones. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Okay.
You mean what your comments about the chair, vice chair piece? Is that what you? Okay, all right. So because if you are looking for a change in how it's been done, then yes, that may be a more detailed conversation that the
detailed
policy
policy,
committee
right.
needs to have. Correct.
Yes.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, okay. And also, Ms. White, I think to your point, what I was also reviewing and, as I looked at the policies, a lot of it is not so much that I think the policy needs to be rewritten. I think we need to ensure that what's in the policy is being done. Hence, I think the governance.
Not the policy to be rewritten, because you don't rewrite a policy, you revise the policy.
Revise, I'm sorry, yeah.
So I'm looking at, I've read this policy and it does need to, I know it's been there for quite a while and it's been revised or looked at.
You're on mute, Ms. White. You're on mute.
I said all of that, okay? You're on commute. But I think to be revised, because we do have a new board, it needs to be looked at the new board. And it does need to be revised because this policy has been a while. And I know it has been through different boards and it's been revised because I have all 3 copies. So I'm looking at certain things and I just feel when the policy comes in committee, they probably will have some of the same things. So I don't need to do that today. We just need to get the manual put out.
Okay, sounds good. And
Ms. Jones.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry, I have a question. So I'm hearing what Ms. White is saying, but also looking at the functioning or the role of the governance, because that's looking at our policies as well. So I kind of see them not one and the same, but it could be interchangeable.
Mhm.
So, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
We want to be efficient, operate effective and efficiently. So
Yeah.
that's something that we could also think about as well.
Yeah. Okay.
You okay with that, Ms. White?
I would love for us to work, effective, efficiently, but I know it's still I know it's going to be separate. So I'm just, the task was to do the manual. So I'm on that part for Ms. Jones, but I know that's going to be separate.
I'm on that same task. We're on the same page.
Right, but I know that that's going to be separate and it does entwine, but I have to agree with what in governance, what, what's her name was, I can't think of her name now. We have to decide which one are we really going to use? Is it going to be Robert Rules of Order or is it going to be the policy? So that's one thing that I think that we need to make a decision first.
Mhm.
So
yeah, agreed. And I do recall that we all kind of was in agreement that we'll use it as a recommendation, but we can look at the norms when we go back, because I think we did put that in there, but we can look as when we review the norms. So the next one is 1-5.2, board staff communication. Are we cool with that one going into the manual?
that was a part of our norms too.
Okay, so we good with that one?
Mm-hmm. I think it was a little difference in our norms, but I remember we discussing it about reports. I think it was a question about reports on time limits and.
Yeah, I think that was committees though. I think that was more like committees, reports on committees or something like that.
This was reports and recommendations to the school board from any of their, it was one of our norms.
Oh, you talking about like who was going to be the official spokesperson or something like that?
No, not that. I'm talking about, it was one of Dr. Muhammad's questions about the pulling the data or whatever.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I put a star next to it. So when we look at the norms, you can just remind me again. And then 1-6.1, school board meetings. Are we okay with that? This page?
Yes.
Okay. 1.6.2, agenda preparation and dissemination. Okay with that one? Yeah, okay, Ms. Page?
I think, no, I'll
Yes.
go back to this one.
Okay,
Well, I guess, I mean, to me, it's a little, because we're going through this policy, but we had already discussed this in the norm, because this was one of the ones I brought up in the norm.
okay,
I think this was one everybody brought up in the norms, because this was the one about the 72 hours. I was saying about that we could add or delete during the meeting. This is this one
okay,
right here. So that is in our, we had to discuss about the time.
okay,
One at a time, and some people didn't. It was the 72-hour one.
okay. So when we get to the norm, we did need to review that again because we highlighted it, but we know that that policy is what leans itself to that norm.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. 1-6.3, quorum and rules of order. So that's to your point, Ms. White, about the Robert Rules of Order, and then kind of creating and adopting a norm that basically speaks to how we're going to operate and whether or not, and I think we did put that in the norm, correct?
We did not. But
So
we
did
was
we put
supposed
it
to
in as a
discuss it.
recommendation? Because I remember,
I think we were going to discuss it. She said we had to decide.
okay, all right, gotcha. So I'm putting a star next to that one as well, okay? And then the last one that I have is 1.6.6, which is electronic participation in meetings from remote locations. Are you okay? Are we okay with that one going in?
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
Ms. Page?
Yes.
Okay, and so that one is really reflective of, you know, virtual meetings and that type of stuff. But then we also have 1-6.7, which is public participation at meetings. And I know that is added to the bottom of the norms, which was Liz's insert at the meeting that we're going to discuss when we pull up the norm stock right now. So are you okay with the 1-6.7 going in as well, even though we're going to decide in the norms what that is going to look like?
It's fine as your policy, but I know we're going to look at it and decide.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, cool. All right, so with that being said, those are the 14 policies that we are agreeing upon as a committee that will go or support the manual. A lot of the language in the manual, you know, will be specific to, I was gonna say, all right, but specific to RPS, and we will revise it again. Like I said, we will create it under the guise of following the strategic plan, the goals. A lot of the language will be language that will reference that will come from our SBA meetings, policy, etc. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So at this time, I'm going to share my screen so that we can look at those adopted norms and look at the highlighted areas that we said that we were going to mention outside, we were going to discuss outside of the training. Hold on. Let me see if I could do this here. I was working hard trying to get this together before we met. Let me see. Can you, oh, wait. Can you all see my screen? Okay, awesome.
Yes.
All right. So I know this first line right here, the chair designee, it's highlighted because we agreed that we were going to remove it because it was already in the norm, and we felt like we wanted to have it in the breakdown versus the you know, in the beginning bullet points. So we're okay.
Can you open your screen up some more?
Oh, let me see.
Pull it down some, a little bit.
Let me see.
Maybe enable.
Is that better?
Now bring it down a little
Bring
bit.
it down right there.
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent.
So remember, this was the one that Ms. Rizzi was discussing, that this same sentence is already in the norms, so we agreed that we would remove this. Everybody's okay with that? Committee?
So, I'm
Good
sorry, say it
evening.
again.
Hi, Dr. Harris Mohammed.
Hello, you all.
Hello.
I apologize for being tardy.
Let me see how, oh man, I done messed up my screen. Hang on one second. Oh no, one person. Right now, what we're doing, Dr. Harris Mohammed, is just, and I done messed up somewhere. We're looking at the highlighted areas of the norms that we all agreed that we were gonna discuss outside of the meeting. We just finished going over all the policies that we agreed that we were going to incorporate into the document, into the manual, I'm sorry. So you didn't miss much. And I am trying to figure out what I've done that makes only make me see one person. Let's see.
Did you change the view?
Go to the top of that square,
gonna
and
say,
you should be
yeah.
able to toggle between one line, two lines, and then a grid view.
Because I see, oh, I think what happened, I see I got it now. It was all the way up in this section. Hold on. I tell you, let's see. Show small. No, don't want that. I think I want this view. Okay, all right, I'm back. Okay, so we were just discussing that this was this paragraph here was what Ms. Rizzi had mentioned about this being in the norms already. So we all agreed that we would remove that. Everybody's cool, so I'm just gonna keep going. Here is where we were just talking about, we were gonna discuss in the committee, as a committee, whether or not, I know Dr. Harris Mohammed, that was one of your concerns that we were addressing as it relates to the 72-hour notice of the, requesting to add agenda items. So Ms. White, do you want to read the policy and then we can decide about the time?
Can we make that a little bigger for my young eyes, if y'all don't mind?
Wait, let's
Thank
see.
you.
Okay, I think, how about that? Okay, perfect. Because this was the one, right, Ms. White, that we were talking about?
Yes, this came up with,
This was, I believe it
it's
was
policy 1-6.2, and we had a discussion.
5.2 or 6 point, okay, 6.2, yep.
And we had a discussion about this in the VSBA. I know some of the members wanted to add items to the agenda within 72 hours. And I think I had said that I disagreed with it because I felt that if we were going by Robert Rules of Order, it stated that the school board, just like this policy says, they said the school board may add or delete from the agenda during a meeting. And this is how we came up with this discussion. Some people said 72 hours, and I had said we should be able to do it during the meeting, before the meeting, before the vote occurs.
So as a committee, what you said before the vote occurs?
So I guess before the adoption of the
Before
agenda.
the adoption of the agenda.
When you want to add,
So go ahead, Ms. Page, I'm sorry.
Let me say something. So I think we also need to be considerate when we are talking about adding items to the agenda. If the administration is not prepared to provide that information to the board, and we already know that we have items that are required and they're agenda items that are time sensitive. And then we talk about the length of our board meetings, all of this comes into play. So, we also need to be considerate of yes, adding an item to the agenda, maybe not at that time, but at a later date. I mean, because if we're talking about streamlining our meetings, streamlining the process, in good board governance, all of that plays into that.
Okay. So my question to the committee is, which I know we talked about the time, but is the concern more about whether or not we should be adding agenda items in a 72-hour notice, or is it more about us being able to have the option to do so? So, so that we can ensure that if we do want to put items on the agenda, that it happens. Because I would like for us to find just a happy median so that we don't get so stuck on the time,
Sure,
but that we all, as a board governance, be able to, if we choose to add a agenda without it being last minute or in the middle of a meeting. So how can we as a committee figure out a happy median, and so that we don't, focus so much on the time? Because I get where both sides are, but we also want to make sure that we do allow folks to be able to add to the agenda. But we should be, as the governance team committee, really thinking about, similar to Ms. Page's point, consideration for the administration, but at the same time, how do we share information in a timely manner, in a way that everyone is kind of in the know before it happens, and that we all are either receiving a response once it's submitted. So I'd love to hear from you guys on just maybe some options, if in fact, because I think 72-hour notice is good. But again, like I said, I want to be able to make sure that we don't get hung up on that, when if the clear issue is really just making sure we get agenda items in a timely manner and a response.
What about adding language? If we wanted to add items to the agenda within the 72 hours, but with the understanding that the administration may not have the time to provide us.
I like that.
Provide us the information so that we can make an informed decision.
Okay, so
can I write it in the chat for you, Ms.
Yes.
Page? I know exactly where you're going. I love it.
Okay,
that's
awesome.
fine.
Okay, I love that, because that's what I was trying to
type faster than I do.
Okay, what'd you say, huh? Oh, you said I type fast.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Hold on, let me go there. Okay. And I will read it out loud for our guests.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Almost done.
Okay.
Yeah, because we want to be realistic.
Yeah.
School board members must understand that adding items to the agenda on the night of a school board meeting may and can delay the administrator providing information for all school board members in a timely manner.
I love it. Okay. So, what I'll do is, let me see if I can do this right here. Let me see. Copy.
That was a good point, Ms. Page.
Let me see if I can do this. Hold on, Dr. Harris.
Okay.
But I have a question.
I think it's okay. Sure. Yes, ma'am. And I think it's important to put timely manner. We can't expect it the next day.
Okay. So I wrote in here, school board members must understand that adding items to the agenda on the night of a school board meeting may and can delay the administration providing information for all board members.
And that could take out, because my heartburn was the board and superintendent will work to not surprise each other with any issues or discussions that take place at board meetings, because sometimes, and I wasn't just thinking about me, but a lot of times, colleagues, it's hard. We get these concerns right before a board meeting.
Right.
and you know, we may not have had time to process it.
Right.
Or ask the administration to do the research on our behalf for the constituents. So I was having some heartburn with that statement, but the suggestion that Ms. Page had is clear. That's plain, I think, but.
You had
Thank
to add something, Ms. Lilly?
Yes, just so that you're trying to work within your framework too, I want the board to make sure they know that there is a new business section on your agenda, right? Every meeting. And so the tension between either adding an item, and this is just, again, for whatever it's worth, a suggestion, adding an item at the adoption of the agenda, right? Versus placing that item when new business is called for on the new business list, such that that item is then incorporated in a later. The purpose of it was to really function as we bring the item up now, and then that item is incorporated, or that issue is incorporated if need be in a future agenda. So you do have opportunity to kind of have it on the new business list, right? But not add an item at an agenda adoption. So you have some other mechanisms as well.
So you want to add some
your agenda?
Yeah. So you adding something else, Dr. H? Okay.
I got it right there. I was listening to her.
Okay. Okay. So
I think that's more productive in us operating, good governance.
I'm just adding that as a suggestion if you don't want to do it that way, because some items, like Dr. Harris Muhammad just said, may come up right before the meeting, and it may be, I don't, as a board member, I don't want to change the agenda to, adopt it as an actual item, but I'll bring it up in new business so that it's in the minutes, and then it can be discussed at a later meeting. That's just an option.
So what about this? This can, the new business. So Dr. Harris Muhammad, what you have, you can also add, or we may want to add items during the business section, because a lot of times when we start adding items to the agenda at the beginning of the meeting, we sometimes
we make the meeting long. Say it, Ms. Page. We make the meeting long. Just say it.
We look at scatterbrain. I'm trying to be politically correct.
Okay, so let me ask you. So, do we want to then remove this statement right here and add what we just discussed, that if we want to add an item to the agenda, we can put it on new business? And what we're saying is, if we put it on new business, it's the same as if you sent it beforehand, and it may or may not get discussed. It may get, discussed at a later meeting, but if there's room and we have time, there may be an opportunity for you to be able to discuss it at the meeting, that meeting at hand.
But it gives the administration the opportunity to provide the information that we have requested.
Okay, so question. So does that remove the deadline for requesting to add items for 72 hours and then be replaced with, if you add an item, you have to add it to new business? Correct. And with the understanding that adding items to the agenda on the night of a school board meeting may and can delay the administration providing information for all board members. And I don't think we need to say timely manner, but I think it's just like,
I was just,
so we'll remove that. So what I'll do is I'm going to replace what you just put in, Dr. HM, and I'm going to replace I'll remove the 72 hours, since we were trying to really. Okay.
You didn't get what I wanted to say something about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. White.
I was just looking at the policy, because the agenda should be distributed to the school boards at least 3 days in advance of the regular meeting, which is 72 hours.
Okay.
So it's the same thing. So if you're going to request to add an item, it should be on, it's really the same thing. It should be on the agenda before it's disseminated, which is 72 hours. So if the president or chairperson knows of this, because I think the problem is not because it extends our board, because board members do know that there's going to be a discussion. And I know that the president knows if a person is actually saying, I have a resolution, but there's no status coming back. So what happens is it is given straight on the board during the board meeting. Now, whether it extends the hour or not, because our agenda is already full. Because sometimes it's already full. You have to, well, we're going to do this the next time. We don't need this time. So it's already full. We just have to come up with a policy. And I think if we're doing it 72, if it's supposed to be disseminated to me in 72 hours, I pretty much want everything that's going to be on that agenda in 72 hours. Now, if it's an emergency or the chairperson says, okay, go ahead, we can add it on new business tonight. Maybe we have some time to discuss it. I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
and so it has to work both ways.
So committee, yeah, exactly. I agree with that. And so are we saying that within the 72 hours, which is what we have there, the deadline to submit new business or an item to submit an item to the agenda. So we'll keep the deadline for 72 hours to add an item to the agenda. And do we want to include then, and so then we're back to the board and superintendent will work to not surprise each other with any issues or discussions that take place at the board meeting. Okay, so I think that if we say the deadline is requesting to add agenda items to the agenda is it within 72 hours, are you asking, Ms. White, that we then be informed before the meeting whether or not your item is going to be presented? Yeah. Okay.
That's just common courtesy.
Okay.
Because then we wouldn't have to have these surprises at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Saying that somebody just pop up because you didn't give me the status of whether it should be there. Okay. Because I do have that. If you look at your policy, I have that right.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Policy says we have the right. Correct.
You have the right. Yeah. So
it does say that. Mm-hmm.
That's why I wanted that the board and superintendent would work to come out based on the policy.
Okay.
Yep.
So what we want to do then is, so that I'm clear, we want to keep the deadline for requesting to add items on the agenda is within 72 hours of the meeting, correct?
Yes.
You have something, Ms. Lilly?
No, I was just trying to follow the, you said something about it's in the policy. What were you saying?
Yeah, what's referenced?
The agenda dissemination.
Yeah, so the agenda,
1.62.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's what, okay. I just want to make sure which part of this you were saying was which is the 3 days.
With the 3 days.
The 3 working days, yes, but
is
basically to post it.
Right.
So the meeting has to be final, the agenda has to be finalized. And this is one of those things that I've become intimately familiar with over the last several weeks, to post the agenda, finalize it and post it. And then, all that to be done within 3 days to have up to, to go up to that 72 hours to say, board member to say, I want something on the agenda, decide whether or not it's going to be on it or not, get it on the agenda and get it posted and still be able to get it out within 3 days of the meeting. That's a tight turnaround. And again.
So I think committee as for the sake of, just making things work, which is what we are here to do, and being mindful of all the different variables that do factor into agenda setting. Because it's easy for a board member to say, I'm going to put something I wanted, but we all know that as school board members, we are working full-time jobs. We have a lot of stuff going. So we want to be mindful of that as well. And again, I love the fact that we are doing this. We're diving into policy to try to align with our actions. But at the same time, we can be a little flexible. We don't have to make it so rigid that nobody can kind of do what they need. Like there's no, like we said, we can't be realistic. So I want to be able to take into consideration all of you all's concerns and get to a place of what's the best thing for everybody. And I do know that there is a responsibility that is there concerning when board members request items to be on the agenda and the response that we all look to receive if we do submit something. So I just want to, that's where I think the surprise comes in maybe, because it's like if you have already tried to post the agenda and then somebody comes before that and says, I want to add something, and you got to go back and revise, which that's, you know, but how do we want to move forward on this one?
So
Well, my question
I
is-
have a caveat that I would like to add too. So when we talk about adding agenda items to the agenda, who are we supposed to send these agenda items to? We supposed to send it to leadership, superintendent?
And the chair and the vice chair.
Yes, it's their leadership.
Yeah.
Okay. And then another thing, I think we also need to keep in mind as we add items to the agenda, and Ms. White, her expectation may be different from mine, or, you know, Dr. Harris Muhammad. So we charge, or we task the superintendent with something, because he runs the day-to-day operations of the school system. But as a board, we don't tell them how to execute that item or whatever issue or whatever initiative that, you know, we want to see move forward, or as a board. So that's something else we also need to keep in mind. Because we do have a tendency, we'll tell the administration to do X, Y, and Z, but that's not our role.
Okay.
So I think that needs to be
And we can get that in our
you know,
retreat.
Keep all right,
this
in
page.
mind.
Yeah. So do you all want to, so do you recommend, and Ms. White, I hear you, I hear your concerns.
No, and I got another question.
Okay, ma'am.
Can the agenda items be sent prior to that meeting?
Well, they should be sent prior to the meeting anyway, because if they're sent prior to the meeting, then that will, you know, that goes back to your question about.
I'm talking about the one that, like, say for instance, I'm talking about the ones, you only have two. If I'm looking at two choices of this agenda, I'm looking at, since someone said, well, we shouldn't do, I think Ms. Lilly was saying, well, you have to revise and then you put this on. That's like a lot of trouble. To me, I don't like all that extra. You should already have your agenda made and you should go stick by your agenda. But if you are either going to put it on new business or you're going to send it prior to and get approval by your leadership to put it on before you make your agenda. And then if you have some type of emergency or it's critical, then you add it to the new business.
Well, I mean, I think what I'm hearing you say is that you would like for school board members to send their agenda items beforehand, and it gets added to the agenda, or we get a response as to whether or not it will. Or are you saying, because I want to make sure that I'm, you know, hearing what you're saying, or are you saying that we submit agenda items beforehand and it automatically goes to new business, and then what we stated earlier, if it's an opportunity to discuss it that night, we will. If it's not, it'll go on for future meetings. I just want to make sure I'm hearing you.
Well, you said all of it, but you added some more, but I'm going to take some of your stuff out.
Okay.
What I want to say, what I'm saying is that I was going back to Miss Lilly, where she was saying that it's too much if you do this and do that. And I've seen that. That has happened since we've been on the board. You get board docs, and then the next thing, I guess something else come on, you revise, and then you have about 3 or 4 in there. I would like for us, when we have an agenda, that our agendas be consistent. I mean, whether it's 72 hours or someone put it prior to the 72 hours, or they put it on the new business, at least have let people have the opportunity to at least say, from the board, that's why you have a chair and that's why you have a vice chair. Because I know that members are asking them about whatever they want to do the resolution, but they're not getting a status. And to me, it is not that professional if you're not going to answer them, whether they can put their resolution tonight or tomorrow. The simple thing is just to say, well, no, we're full of this agenda. We'll put it on next week. If we are having a problem with time, because that's what it seems to me, I'm hearing everybody saying, well, we don't want to put anything on the agenda because it's going to extend our night. Our night has been extended and you haven't had any resolutions on there. So I just need to know some type of format, what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're trying to establish right now as it relates to the language, so that it's a norm that we can follow. And once we put this out, this is what we have to do. So again, are we saying that the deadline to submit a agenda item, are we keeping this language? And then are we adding in what you wrote, Dr. HM? Like, what are we, because I do want to move forward. It's like 7:41 already. So what are we suggesting? And I want to be sure that we incorporate what Ms. White is saying, so that, you know, it is definitely something that we can hold, you know, accountable when it comes to, so when it happens, we have something to go back to be able to say, this is what we said. So how are we moving forward? Are we keeping on? Because I want to be consistent, like Ms. White said. Are we keeping on the deadline for requesting to add items to the agenda? Because again, now that you want to keep that on, okay, the board and superintendent will work to not surprise each other with any issues or discussions that take place. So we said that we would remove this, and the caveat is school board members must understand that adding items to the agenda on the night of a school board meeting may and can delay the administration providing information for all board members.
What do you think, colleague?
I think.
Ms. White.
And then you had another statement too, Dr. Harris. Let me.
I think I put it in the chat. Let me see.
Okay, and I dropped mine. Let me get back to my screen. Sorry about that. I closed it.
Okay. Oh, if a school board member, may I, Madam Chair, to read it? I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
If a school board member wishes to add an item to the school board agenda, they have the option to add, it should read, they have the option to add during the new business. So I heard Ms. Lilly say something about new business earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I agree with that.
Okay, so let me add that in here. And Ms. White, was there anything else that you would like for us to add as it relates to the response, or how you just, what do you want to add? Because we can definitely add it.
No, my question now is, since you done put this up, since Dr. Muhammad done put this up there to the new business, we're still gonna have a deadline to add items to the agenda. Is still gonna be within the 72 hours, but on the new business line? Is that what? Is that how I'm?
I think they're two separate.
This?
I think they're two separate pieces.
Yeah,
we still
different.
Keep, right? They're different. I agree. I think the timeline should remain in place. Then the caveat to that is the statement that I just read, adding, if a school board member wishes to add an item to the school board agenda, they have the option to add it to the new business during the new business section.
But you could play with that both ways. That's why I'm asking, because you said within 72 hours of the meeting, then you came back and said, well, I can add. So what you're saying, within that 72 hours of that meeting, I can add an item to the agenda, but it will be added to the business.
No, that's separate. That's separate. The deadline for
that ain't what they're reading though.
Okay. The deadline to requesting an item to add items to the agenda is within 72 hours of the meeting, period. That's regular. If I want to add adding bicycles to the budget for every elementary school student, that request should be sent to the chair and vice chair within 72 hours. If the statement that I just added, because we receive things right up to the meeting, if we get items from our constituents or staff members or, employees, well, excuse me, not employees, we want to have one or two, but if we get something that is of concern, we can add it to the agenda during the new business. Those are two separate things.
I understand they're two separate things, but you didn't, you're not, okay, you said of concern or of emergency. I don't see that there. I could just wait. I could just wait and add it and think it's a concern to me or an issue to me, but it may not be an issue to you. And I want to add it that night instead of giving it to you in 72 hours.
And then,
do I have to go to the
new business?
New business.
If it's you don't go to new business.
But I still have to go to the leadership, right? To get permission to put it on new business.
Well, no, what Ms. Lily was saying was that, so on that night, let's say you have a concern, an issue, an emergency that you want to add, you would wait until after the adoption of the agenda, and then you would say you have an item to add to new business, with the understanding that you adding it to new business, it may not be discussed that night based on what our agenda is, and it may be added to a new meeting.
I understand that part.
But I see what she's saying now. I see what Ms. White is saying.
Who determines what is an emergency or?
Well, I was just.
But we got to get to a place of. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I shouldn't have used emergency. It could be anything.
Oh, no.
I was just saying.
But I'm just saying, if I don't want to wait for my 72 hours, you're saying the deadline to add an agenda is 72 hours. I mean, I want to wait for that. It could happen the same way it happened the last time. And I said, well, and the board may say, well, we don't want to discuss this, but it's going to be added to the new business. Just because we don't have enough time, we're not going to discuss it. We're going to put it over next. I'm not sure if y'all understand what I'm saying.
I do understand, but here's the thing, right? I think we can go back and forth about what has already happened, or we could focus on what we're trying to do moving forward. Right. And what we're trying to do moving forward is set a culture of call and response. If we send something, we're asking that the administration and leadership, honor the request. If you send it before 72 hours and let you know that your request has been received, even if it's as simple as received, thank you, we'll follow up, whatever, we can, share that. And then on the night of a school board meeting, if you feel, because we can't determine what is an emergency, what is pertinent, what you feel you want to discuss right then and there. We can't tell you what's, like you said, of value to you, but being mindful that when you do add it on the night of, it's going to go on new business, and it may not get discussed that night, but you will know before the meeting is over when it will be discussed, whether it's the next board meeting or whatever have you. I think that's what I got.
Yeah, that's what you got, but you're missing what you just said, because you haven't said you said exactly what you regurgitated what you just was on here, but what was missing is that you did not say about the leadership is not in here. See, it makes sense when you said it, but you didn't say you will receive a status from the leadership.
Right, correct. But that's what I asked you. I said, so Ms. White, what is it that you want us to add that will, in its totality, or that will solidify this action, this norm? What is it that you want us to add? Do you want us to add that leadership will respond in however long? What is it that you want us to add? Because since that's, like I was asking you earlier, a concern that you have, we want to make sure that it's inclusive of this norm. So is it?
Concern was this, what my concern? My concern was the only thing, it wasn't dealing with this. The only concern that I had was the 72 hours. And that's what I discussed. But now, since you all are talking about it, it made a lot of sense. But I wanted to get clarity from Dr. Muhammad on her part that she had put in there. Because sometimes you can put two things in there, and it depends on how you can speak to it. People use it to their advantage. Since she explained that, now I can go with that.
Okay.
I'm not the person who's going to probably put a resolution at that night, but I would love to see how it's going to be handled that night. That's all.
And also, we need to keep in mind, like, adding items to the agenda, whatever that item is, it could be an isolated issue, or it could be a district-wide issue. So that's also based on interpretation. But I think as we develop this language, we need to be very clear and concise and not too wordy. So that we can all understand it and move forward.
Okay, so committee. Is everyone good with this statement? I mean, I do think that, because I would like to remove the highlights if we are, so that we can move on. And I just want to make sure that we're all good on it before we move on. And we have time to.
I'm just gonna say one more thing.
Okay.
One more thing before. I mean, I'm just thinking out. I'm just thinking out the box.
That's fine. We appreciate it.
Just new business is way down at the bottom of the agenda. And I know that we have had some concerns from constituents about things coming on the agenda after they have left or gone to bed, and they wake up and they say, what happened? They don't know anything. And I think they were concerned about that a couple of times, because I think a resolution was made and they were gone or they were asleep and there was no participation from the community. And when you say new business is way down there. And if we discuss it, say the chairman, I mean, the leadership say, yeah, let's do it tonight. And we discuss that, then what would our constituents say? What would they say? We didn't involve them because they were asleep, because we were new business was at 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock. That's just my thought.
Okay, Ms. Lilly?
I was just going to clarify, and maybe this language to make sure that everybody is operating under the same understanding. The purpose of new business is to simply raise the issue. It's not designed or hasn't been designed in the purpose, the function of you all's meetings, although sometimes it looks different, but again, we're not gonna go back, we're gonna go forward. It was designed to simply raise the issue so that the issue can be then placed on another agenda, a future agenda, for a full detailed discussion if necessary, and action, if any actions need to be taken. So perhaps if you're adding this language here, the school board member, board members have the option of adding items to new business with the understanding that that issue may not be discussed in full on the night of the meeting. And that will clarify that. So, I agree, no action should really be taken in the new business section. It's just to raise the issue and to note it. And that's why, as Dr. Harris Muhammad started off saying, if something comes to you literally right before the meeting, an hour before the meeting, that you don't want to get lost, it's basically you being well in advance of your 72 hours of putting it on the next agenda, so to speak.
Yeah. All right, so are we good? I know that, are we good? Okay.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense after she clarified that. I guess new business is just to bring the topic up and then move on to the next meeting or the next meeting. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
So you won't discuss it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense.
If that's not how it was designed and added on your agenda. I mean, just historically, it looks differently, has looked differently, but that's not how that was not the intended purpose.
And thank you for sharing that, Ms. White. And what I also was thinking as you were speaking is that maybe we also at some point need to share with the public how the agenda actually goes, because if folks are thinking that new business is something that they're missing, maybe we need to just think about that. So I just wrote that down, just, for further discussion at some point, just to make sure that the public fully understands how the agenda actually goes, so that folks don't feel like they're missing anything. So I appreciate that. And last thing you said, Dr. HM, you said you wanted us to remove the board, that the board and the superintendent will work to not surprise each other with any issues or discussions that take place at board meetings. And are we all good with that? Because what we're essentially saying is, because we move down to this next statement of the new business, et cetera, is that we won't work to surprise anyone, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so, all right, Ms. Page, you good with us removing this statement right here?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, I'm gonna highlight this. Okay, moving on. All right, so we talked about, which one is this? Board meeting discussion procedure. And I know that this was part of where we were mentioning how long, part of the discussion was the Robert Rules of Order, where they said each person had 10 minutes. And we said that we would discuss this outside of the governance meeting. And I wasn't sure if, I'm sorry, Ms. White?
It said it wasn't 10 minutes. It was, I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to
Is
get
it
it
3?
back. I'm getting it. No, it said 10, but it said no more than 10.
But is it like, and no more than 10 and speaking twice, but should it be 5 minutes? Because 10 minutes is a long time.
I think, yeah, 10 is a long, I think 5.
But we can set the limit ourselves, 3 minutes per topic.
Yeah.
You said 3 minutes per topic and then come back around the second time? Well, that because that's 6 minutes a person.
Well,
They came back
I
again.
would say total.
That's what I'm saying, 6 minutes.
That's still, right?
I think that's fair.
Which
Yeah,
one, 3
I don't
minutes?
think it should be 10 minutes.
No, definitely not 10. And five is pushing it. No,
5 is,
That'll be 10 if you do.
right,
If you do 5, that's 10 because you got twice to talk on the same subject.
right, but if I'm thinking more so if you have 5 people speaking at 5 minutes at a time. So the shorter the time, the more people can so 3.
3.
Okay, so board members will speak to topic at hand and will be limited to 3 minutes.
Yes, because if you notice, if you say something again, you're pretty much restating what you said the first time.
We talked about that in norms. We talked about that in the norms, correct?
Yeah, and I have that. Well, I think we have something like that down there. If a board member has to, this is so, let me see, stated a point, it does not need to be restated. We need to cut that out too.
Yeah.
It said members of
the students call that cosign. We don't.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. We need to stop doing that because we do have a tendency to do that.
Absolutely, Ms. Page. We do. We all have done it.
Okay, so do we? Where did we write that, or did we?
That was the part that we added on. What did we meet? Tuesday, Wednesday, Tuesday?
In the norms. So we didn't add it. Did we add it in the norm though?
No.
Yeah. If a board member, I stated that. I said I think we should have, if a board member has stated a point, it does not need to be restated.
It's there.
Oh yeah.
It's there. It's right there.
It's there.
In the yellow.
It's highlighted.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. All right. So let me
the other piece, just for clarity's sake, because I heard 2 things, so I want to make sure everybody is operating on the same thing. Is it going to be 3 minutes total, or 3 minutes per, or 3 minutes per time, which would be 6 minutes total?
That's what I said.
Because I think we got 2 different things going on there.
Yeah. So I think it should be speak to topic at hand and will be limited to 3 minutes. And then we said something about speaking twice. Let me see. Well, okay, no. So we should add that in here.
If you speak twice, it's still 6 minutes.
It's still right. It's still right. You have there that you can speak. I can't see the top of it, but you have a second time. Somebody can. You have to wait for somebody. So just put come back and speak for a second time. So is it 6 minutes total?
Yeah, I'm gonna say 6 minutes. That's what I'm gonna say. 6 minutes total to be clear.
And if you use your 6 minutes,
the
first time, then it's a wrap.
Yeah, it's over.
But don't put it's a wrap. Don't put that. But
okay, hold on. We getting some, we doing it.
And if we restate the topic or a statement that we've already.
You gotta pay 25 cents, Ms. Page.
Exactly, we
You
gotta
know
do
what?
something.
Y'all gonna pay, like the teachers, y'all gonna put money in the jar.
Exactly.
And we gonna get, I'm putting that down here on the bottom. If
No,
you
you
restate it,
That jar gonna be full by the end of the night.
Exactly.
right, they gonna put the money in the jar.
Right, and I'll be the keeper of the money.
Say,
Of
Ms.
the
Page,
jar.
I keep the jar. You can't take that jar. I keep the jar now with the money in it.
Okay,
Absolutely.
awesome. All right,
Yes.
so while virtual meetings are taking place, school board members will use the chat. We've been doing that. The vice chair will keep track of the requests to be recognized in the order in which they appear. We're good with that. We've been doing that. That's been flowing pretty well. But the issue was the talking. So now that we've cleared that up, I think we're good. Okay. Communication between and among board members. School board members are encouraged to communicate with one another, following the rule of no more than 2 members at a time. Board members should not reply all or be, I mean, that we didn't really discuss this, but I think it's highlighted saying board members may also add a disclosure at the bottom of emails to remind that recipients should not reply all. But I think we've been doing pretty well with that. I know there's, I mean, what do we want to
I think so.
do? We need to add anything here, or are we okay with
I don't
this?
think so. I think that's
I
good.
think we
We're
good.
finished with that, won't we?
I think we're
Yeah,
good.
it was highlighted. I was just wanting to
Oh.
make sure. Okay.
So you can highlight it.
Yeah, I'm gonna unhighlight it. Okay. So communication between board members and staff, including requests for information. So school board members should make all requests for information directly to the superintendent and copy the chief of staff. And then we highlighted as well as the board chair and vice chair. If the request is coming from the chair or vice chair, all board members should be notified. Oh, here it also goes, Ms. White, the superintendent or chief of staff will provide an estimate in writing on when data will be available. But I know you were talking about the agenda, but
That's what Dr. Muhammad's about the data.
okay.
I didn't say anything about data. No.
Are we cool here, or do we need to add anything else?
Or when the information is provided, because data
Okay, so-
is not just numbers. It could just be information.
Okay, so we want to say when information will be available or provided.
Yes, because
Available.
sometimes your data is not just a quantity, it's also a quality of information.
So you want when the data will be available or provided, is what you're
in
saying?
writing on when the information will be available.
Okay.
So why not
with data.
say data/information?
That'll work too. That'll work too. It covers both.
Mm-hmm.
It covers both. Yep. The qualitative and the quantity.
All right.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, so let me unhighlight this one. Oh, look at us working.
So we may not need to have another meeting.
Yes, we do.
Oh,
Because Ms. White got some other stuff that she
Oh, no, that's for the policy.
Oh, right.
That's for the policy committee, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
It's not-
So we won't need another meeting, not the governance team, not the governance committee.
Let me see. Hold on. Oh, why is this not? Okay, let me see how this goes. Text, highlight, color. Stop highlighting. No color. Why this one ain't changing? Let me see. Hold on. This one won't let me change it for some reason.
Let me see.
I'll go back and change it at some
Okay,
point.
let me see.
Yeah, it won't let me change it.
Just put it in gray till you go to the next one. That
Yeah,
way
let's
you
give it
like
an
you'll
add
know
color.
that you want to take it out.
Mhm. Oh, Lord. All right, cool. Okay. All right, so that's not highlighted, so we good with that. All right, use of social media. School board members can utilize social media, reference policy if it's available. Now, out of those policy numbers, maybe, was that, Ms. White, do you have it in front of you if that?
Ms. Lily might have it.
It's
Okay,
1-1.5
that's what I thought.
that was, that has a reference to social media, and it just basically says, while communicating in a public forum, is that what? It says, while communicating in a public forum, including social media, this is at number 2.
Mhm.
School board members shall, realize they're not speaking for the entire board, realize that any comments they might make may be interpreted as an official position of the board. So basically just asking board members to be mindful in their conversation on social media. So that's the policy that relates most closely with that.
All right. So should we add the
So
policy
so
in
one
here
dash,
since we
yeah,
say,
one,
okay,
1-1.5, policy 1-1.5.
1-1.5?
Right, so part of that norm, with the exception of that last italicized language, is the policy,
Okay,
or is based on, the policy is related to that.
okay, cool. All right, when and how the board conducts a self-evaluation.
I got a question.
Okay.
Can you go back down? I saw a
Which one?
glance at something. The one we was just discussing,
Okay.
the
Mhm.
policy we just put.
Right here. Mhm.
Okay, that's the one we put in the other day. So is there a policy, Miss Lily, that says that school board members should not be on social media during meetings of the board?
No, the policy doesn't extend to that.
Oh, okay. I just
No.
want-
We put something in here though, right, Ms. White? I thought we did. I
But
remember.
if that's your
right.
norm,
That's it
and
right
you
there.
all are going to adhere to that, that's, but it's just not a policy.
Just as good as policy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, you may want to add it in your policy at a later date, but
Yeah, that's something the
that
policy committee can
we
take
can
up.
talk about. Because we
Mhm.
did, and again, not to belabor the history, but there was a policy at one time on the use of electronics and things like that
Yep.
in closed session. But so
That's been a problem.
that wasn't, well, anyway, that was their language there before, so we can revisit that in the policy.
Well, I know that we put that in there with Miss with Gina the other night, so that
Okay.
was that part.
Yeah,
So that's why I was just.
that's perfectly fine for your norm, and
Can't hear you.
Yeah,
I said that's
if we
perfectly
want-
fine
if
with
we
your
wanna
norm.
add
Once you
that-
agree to it, you agree to it. So.
But if we're going to add that, I mean, we may need to add some other things. I mean,
Yeah, so.
I'm keeping it real.
Like what, Miss Page?
Like we're just talking about using social media as the only means to communicate with the public. And really the administration, the public relations department, communications department, they should be the ones pushing out the information for board members as well. Because
I thought that's what we discussed the other night. Didn't we discuss that the other night?
Yeah, we discussed it, but it's still.
Oh, you mean put it in here to let them
as a
know
norm.
that they're supposed to do it? Okay.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, what I was stating was, you were saying that we should put that in there so that they know that that is their position to do that?
No, I'm just saying that's their job, the administration, to push out the information. That was my only point about that.
Okay.
All right, so when and how the board conducts a self-evaluation. The school board will evaluate itself once or twice per year. I think we all agree once, twice would be a lot. We have, so once is cool, or?
And your policy currently says annually.
Okay.
As well, so that's
we'll
some
go
information.
once. Okay. Go with once. Let me see if it'll let me change. Okay, all right, being good to me.
Now, I have a question with that, Ms. Lilly, on this one. So the school board will evaluate itself once per year. So is the school board evaluating on how well the board is adhering to the protocols it agreed to follow? Or what are we evaluating on?
So policy 1-1.5 basically has, okay, so basically an instrument needs to be developed or can be reviewed and tweaked, because there is a current rubric that was used in the past that basically, touches on a lot of this. It could be norms, it could be, how the board meetings flow. It could be, it touches on a lot of the expectations of how you all are, I won't say working together. It doesn't, I want to make it sound like that, but I guess in some of your things, if you've said that you're going to, adhere to 3 minutes per person or 6 minutes per person, how well are you doing that? So that instrument itself can be tailored however you want it. And what we can do, I don't know whether it's going to be this committee that does the rubric, the evaluation tool for the board, but we can look at one and I can circulate that to an old one that was used, and you guys can take it from there. And not again, under the column of not reinventing the wheel. But yeah, so it just basically says that to ensure that you're properly discharging your responsibilities. That's a very broad. So, but it that the instrument that I'm thinking of was pretty comprehensive.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty comprehensive.
So the evaluation committee will be bringing that forward to everyone once we finish the evaluation of the superintendent and the auditor.
Okay, cool. All right, so we've oh, let me remove this one up here. Almost forgot about this. Okay, so then the other thing that we talked about was the violation. And I think if Ms. Page, correct me if I'm wrong, if we don't fully have an evaluation designed yet, do you think how are we going to work with what the violations look like, which there is a policy, like I said, that discusses and addresses violations, which is that 1-1.5. And so if we want to, which, as a committee, what are you all's thoughts on, do you think that this violation is, could use a little bit more substance? Do we want to wait until we actually develop the evaluation and maybe pull from whatever that rubric is, like Ms. Lilly mentioned, and then design the violations? I think it's kind of, I'm not sure
I think the
where.
latter is the
We
best.
could, I mean, just like Ms. Lilly said, the instrument that we have is pretty comprehensive, but we can send it out to board members to see if, any modifications need to be made. But that's a good point.
Okay.
I agree.
So are you all okay? Are you okay? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. White.
I have a question. Is the evaluations, are they for the, are the violations, is the violations for the whole entire norms and protocols, or is the violation for the self-evaluation?
The violation is going to be for the norms, but because we will have there is a policy. We should also look at the policy to make sure that the violations of the norm is reflected in. Is that right? Is that correct, Ms. Lilly? Because I think we can't just make up a violation. So
right. That I was going to say, because the way it stands now in policy 1-1.5, your violations in that particular policy relate to any violations of the policy, okay, of what's stated in your current policy. And so if you want to then incorporate so the norms, and again, this is, I'm thinking ahead to the policy, we may want to, when we review this again, add a statement to the policy that talks about norms and procedures, because that's what these are, basically, are procedures, right? Your procedure. So, you know, add a statement that talks about the procedures and your norms, but by specific violations of the norms and protocols, you know, if you wish to have some, you know, it could be within this particular document, but I think it just needs to be made clear that it's
a new policy.
It's the norm. It's kind of, you know, what are we doing? Or maybe we incorporate in the policy any violation of the norms or procedure, you know, the policy, norms, and protocols, you know, we add that language so that we have one set. Because as I'm looking at the violations, as I'm looking at the violations in the policy, the first one, the first level basically is that, you know, the chair, I thought the first one was that the chair and vice chair talk to the person. We'll have to, I won't belabor the time tonight, but we just want to make sure that there's one set of violations, right? So we don't want to say, oh, well, you violated the norm, here's your chart there.
Absolutely.
All of the violations should be consistent. So that's some work that we would still need to do. If you want to go from a one-on-one conversation to because some of the elements are there, I just need to look at it and synthesize them both to see what's not covered.
Okay, so
because you have the part about taking them off of committees, you know, because that's in here, right? Serious or repeated sanctions or violations. We can just, but we do have the more severe sanctions of, consequences of reprimands or censures and things like that. So it seems like in this particular process, it just is the removal from committees, but they need to be together. I guess I'll just stop right there. It needs to be the same set of policies. Same set of violations.
Yeah. Okay, so again, that also goes back to what we were discussing earlier when we said, you know, that it is a living, breathing document. We understand and we're well aware that the violations definitely would need to be updated. We can look at the policy. It will also be in tandem with the evaluation, because I think the evaluation should also be reflective of whatever the violation should be reflective of the way you're scoring or whatever is happening. So I do think we can, you know, come back to this without feeling like we need to make a change. And since we don't plan on violating anybody, we have time to work this out. So I'll remove the highlights from this right now, committee, but we do agree that we will add some more language to the violation portion of this document. So, okay, I'm coming. Okay, and then the last two things were the requests that Liz shared on. She put forth the resolution before at another meeting, and then when we were talking about it in the norms, we agreed that we think that we should discuss this and look at it as a norm. I looked at a few other school boards, and they tend to operate similar to this way as it, you know, is concerning public information. But I just wanted us to look at this and decide where could we add this within the norm. So the statement is public information. We follow city council and surrounding district best practices to public comment. All public comments are entered into public record. We allow 30 minutes for general comments that are unrelated to current board business and 30 minutes for items specifically related to board business. We tabulate responses, yes/no, for a specific board action. Now, I will like to say that I did notice from another school district when I did look, that they look like they use maybe like a Google form. And then though that information gets uploaded, and we do have a policy on public information, which is that 1-6, public participation. And it did say that comments should be submitted, but it also says that comments should be submitted by noon. And we say 1 o'clock. So that's something that we should discuss around how we want the comments to be submitted and whether or not we are okay with following city council and surrounding districts' best practices. So any feedback?
I just gonna say something about the first one that you read, because
Okay.
I know that other boards do, like Enrico does do that first part. But I got an issue with we tabulate the responses yes or no for specific board actions.
Mhm.
Who will be doing that? Because I mean, who are we giving this extra duty to, right?
Well, maybe the clerk.
Don't you have enough already?
I don't know, Ms. Lily, you were gonna say something.
I don't know.
Oh, no, I was just trying to get my head around not only who's going to do it, but how do you, given, in reviewing some of the comments that you get, unless you have a form that specifically says, are you in favor of or not? But some of our comments are just very general comments, right? And so, it will be very difficult to, I won't say it will be very difficult, but sometimes it's not always clear as to one side or the other. And so, that may be something that may not, you find, if it's helpful, that's one thing. If it's not, you need to clearly ask that information from the commenter so that you can, have something to, yes, this person said yes, this person said no, that type of thing. This is the issue. So that might be, it would be a clerk function, but it would be a lot of layers added to that. But maybe the clerk can ask how the city council does it and the clerk does it there or whomever, I don't know.
Yeah, so question, team, do you think, and I'll read through the other 3 right quick, but do you think that this is something that's worthy of going on new business? And then we can discuss how to incorporate this into the norms so that we won't be making a decision for the public, just us. How do you all wanna address this?
And my other question would be, would it be the same for whether we're in person or virtual?
Okay. So the other was number 2, the email speakers at rvaspeakers.net is replaced with an online survey form so that we can capture name and optional email addresses. Address district to make it easy for the administration and board members to follow up with commenters. I do think too also that part of this ask would also help maybe being able to keep up and track so that a lot of times we do get well, that's a different thing. Never mind. I was thinking about something else. But, and then we establish a norm of ending our meetings at 10 p.m. in order to facilitate an on-time ending. And we reestablish the practice of posting the agenda with a proposed start and end time for each item. And the last one is presentations. We receive all presentations by Wednesday when the agenda is posted, and we ask that the administration shortens presentations. How do you all want to handle this? Because we agree that we would look at it to add it, and I do think it needs to be added to the norms, but for the sake of time, how do we incorporate this? Or again,
I think I like the first one, but like I said, I'm not
tabulating, I'm concerned with.
Yeah, I'm concerned with that one, and I'm just gonna go on down the line. The second one, I'm not really, I just wanna know, do the administrator follow up with the comments? Do they?
I don't, Ms. Lily? Yeah.
I don't know. Do they follow up? Basically,
I'm not sure.
Email address.
I'm not sure now what occurs since we've been virtual, but before, when we were in person, the administration did. They would go right to the representative would go right to that person after they spoke, and then address their concerns with them. I don't know if that's being done now. I can't speak to that.
So, colleagues, I have a suggestion. Can we provide feedback to Ms. Jones by Sunday, Monday? Because we are going to meet again, right?
Well, that's
But I know this has to be completed.
yeah. So that
finished, right?
Say it again.
Oh, we almost finished. This is the last one, right?
Yeah, this is the last one for the norms, but we have, 2 more things to discuss and then we'll be done, but it's not that long, but we needed to get through this first, so.
And the last one about presentations, maybe this is my personal thought. And I see where it says when we receive all presentations by Wednesday, but when the agenda is posted and we ask the administration to shorten presentations, what does that mean? I'm not understanding that.
I think that is to align with the meetings being able to end by 10. And so if the presentations aren't long, maybe a summarization or something that would allow us to, kind of keep moving through. That's my thought process behind it. I think that's what she may be referencing. But do you all see any, I know what you meant about the tabulation of responses. Other than that, do you see any, or do you have any concerns with this being a part of our norms? What do you?
I've already given you my thoughts.
And I'm with Ms. White on number 1. I'm very concerned about the tabulation sentence of number 1. I do think I think we should adopt a best practice, as many other school divisions have, not reading all of the public comments or reading the public comments at the beginning of the meeting there for informational purposes only. Many school divisions do that. If I'm reading number 2, it's a bit small, but if I'm reading number 2, as I'm seeing it, I'm fine with that. And I'm definitely kosher with number 3. I'm definitely good with that. We probably could push it to 9. And I think we are when we stick to the norm of the minutes. Watch it happen.
Because one time it was at 9.
Watch
it can be done.
It can be, absolutely.
Okay. So do we see this as a norm? Are we adopting this as a norm then?
I'm just not comfortable with the tabulation piece because I'm not clear who's going to do that. How?
Take that part out.
Yeah, I would agree to that. Take that out.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with that.
Okay.
I don't want to be responsible for tabulating responses for nobody.
Okay.
For public comment.
Okay. All right. So number 4. So we're good. And then presentations, all that we're good with. And we can, I guess, maybe Liz can give a broader understanding about what she means by shortened presentation.
I think she, and she can, but I think she, the administration 15, not a 30-minute presentation, because if we are as school board members doing our due diligence and preparing ourselves for each school board meeting, as we should be doing, we should come to the meeting with any questions or clarity that we have if we did the homework.
But what I'm saying is,
That's true.
What I'm saying is, you're gonna put this on the paper. She's saying we receive our presentations by Wednesday when the agenda is posted. This last sentence that says we ask administration, are she saying that the chairperson, who was shorting the presentation? That's my thing.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What'd you say? Nicole.
No, I was saying, I think she meant like, you know, when Ms. Hadass, like
Cabinet
Dr.
members,
Ebb and, you know, the cabinet members, when they're presenting, that they shorten their presentations.
presentations.
What about presentations from community? You know, people also bring other presentations to the board.
But I
Is that
think
the
they
same thing?
already are, I
That-
think they're already at like a 3-minute or something like that.
Yeah, that's doing public comment.
That's like public information. So I believe they would already be at like 3 minutes. So we wouldn't ask them to shorten it. It's really more about the long presentations and then going through them for this, you know, if the goal would be to end the meetings at 10 o'clock. And to Dr. Harris Muhammad's point, maybe not, but
We haven't had many outside presenters except from Patrick Henry School of Science or Patrick
and they're
Henry,
usually pretty,
because
yeah,
they're
they
doing the financial report. They're really quick. They have to wait on us until 11 and 11:30 to
Right.
present. And then we had another one, I believe, I can't
the
remember.
SHAB committee presented,
Yes, they were not more than 5 minutes. She might have been 10 minutes
Right.
because of questions, but the overall presentation was not. So I think the superintendent has set the stage to let them know, please have your presentations and information within this time frame. We can put it in ink to state that, but it's not what the demonstration of models that we need to have is not for the people whom we invite to present. It is our governance. And so number 4 is important for our cabinet members, but we have to lead the charge.
Understood.
Everyone
But
else is gonna follow.
Understood, but I have seen presentations come to your board prior to that has been, you give a presentation for 5 minutes if you are a organization. And some people, and then after the questions go, it go like 10 minutes. So I'm saying, when you said ask the administration, I believe you just said that Mr. Cameras have this already tailored? So when someone comes, whether it's a presentation by Dr. Ebbs or someone outside, that is 5 minutes, I believe that's what somebody said, 3 minutes. Is that a tailored thing, or is that just they know already? That's what I'm saying.
I believe they work with Ms. Hadasco, and she gives them a time that they will present on the agenda, and they are aware of how much time that they have.
Okay.
I believe.
So,
I could be wrong, but I believe, and maybe Ms. Page could speak to it.
Yeah, so in the past, if we had an individual to speak during public comment, you had 3 minutes, and the board did not ask questions. And then if we had an organization to speak during public comment, they would have 5 minutes. And the board would not ask questions. But like if presentations came to the board, because we've had that, but that was consensus of the board. And that, I think it opens up a can for other things. So I think we need to keep it 3 minutes individual, 5 minutes for organization. And the board, like I said, the board does not ask questions at that time.
Ms. Lily got a question.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure, again, we're clear, because it's two different things happening as far as the public comment period. That's the 3 minute, 5 minute deal. But under the administration business, the board business, I think that's what Ms. White is talking about as well, right? As the presentations from the staff. So the 3 minute, 5 minute is public comment.
Right.
Totally. But the rest of it, you know, whether it be 15, 20 minutes, whatever, and that's, you know, under your administration business, that's Mr. Cameras and his folks, right? And then under your board business, it could be all number, you know, it could be a mix of people. And that's where your other presentations are coming in. That's where you're getting your length, because that's when you have then board members asking questions as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, especially if we talking about student achievement, I don't think, and this is just me speaking, you know, if we're talking about student achievement and we're getting information on how the school division, how our children are performing, I don't feel comfortable telling the administration, oh, you got 2 minutes to provide that report to the board. I mean, because that's what we are here for, student achievement.
Okay. So we're
I
not in
agree.
favor.
That's why I was
agree.
asking that question. That's why I was asking that question. And you said we asked the administration short presentation. So I was trying to figure out where was that going? Was that with the administration or was that with someone on the outside? But I
Okay.
got
All right. So we don't want to adopt number 4. We want the
No,
administration.
I think we do need to adopt number 4 and work through Mr. Cameras to work through whoever he assigns, Mr. Desco or whomever, to ensure that each cabinet member who's presenting is not presenting for 30 minutes or 40 minutes, because then each board member may have questions. So we have to, this presentation method goes both ways. So if we are trying to streamline, it has to be streamlined on both parts, not just board members, but also administration. They have been doing well. Their presentations have not been over 30 minutes the past
Right.
3 or 4 meetings. They have not been. I think number 4 was added some time ago
Right.
because the first 2 months they were 35, they were very long.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but
But
I
also-
think number 4, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, not to cut across you, but I think also that speaks to us not being prepared. You know, with presentations kind of being lengthy. You know, so I mean, I agree with you. It goes both ways, but we have to take on this.
We got
We
to
have
do,
to
we got to
be
do our
prepared.
homework.
Yeah, we have to do our homework.
We got to bring your questions, and I stated this earlier, and I'm not gonna state it again. I'm not gonna say never, but not tonight. We must be prepared at all times when we come to the board meetings. That's it.
Because
Bring
we
your
have a
questions.
tendency. Oh, I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. I keep cutting
No,
across.
I'm just gonna say, bring your questions, your clarity, your concerns
Absolutely.
prior. Have that prepared prior to the board meeting so we can work more efficiently.
Yeah. And another thing to your point also is if we're asking for things to be received, within, by the Wednesday the agenda is posted, we also kind of will already have an idea of how long the presentation will be. So it's not like we'll be there, right? If it's already attached to the agenda, most of the time the presentations are already on board docs, correct? When they submit the information. So I agree. I guess what I'm saying is I agree that you can then already be prepared and have your questions because you already know what the presentation is going to entail. And we'll know, which I think, like you said, they have been making it a point to make sure that the presentations haven't been long. Okay. All right. So we have questions about, we removed it. But we agree, and I think we said we were going to find out or talk to Ms. Burke and the school board clerk to see about who would take on that responsibility of the public information and figuring out and find what city council does around the best practices. The comment section, we have questions about that, but we do think that it's a good practice. We all agree that establishing norms and ending our meetings at 10, hopefully 9, is everyone's cool with that. And then presentations, we receive presentations by Wednesday when the agenda is posted. Everybody's okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
What about Ms. Page and Ms. White?
Oh Lord, I'm sorry. Well, y'all
That's
okay?
okay.
I
We're
can go
working
back.
as a team.
I'm good. You know, I would have said something if I didn't agree.
That's
So I got a question. I heard you said, someone said, I think it was you, Ms. Jones. So about the board docs, so we will have it on board docs by Friday? Because I know sometimes we don't have our things on board docs by Friday.
Yeah, I think I closed the screen, but I want to say one of the norms is that agenda items will be posted in a timely.
Uploaded.
I think it was,
Uploaded.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
And I'm sorry that I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I do remember us posting that as a norm, and we can go back and look at it if need be, but it should be there.
Yeah, 'cause that's something we agreed to
Yeah, in the
last
norm.
time, uploaded by Friday.
Yeah.
And I
If
had
there
a,
were some issues, let us know.
and I had a question for Miss Lilly, because unless someone else knows, what is the process for reporting violations? Since we were going to look at the violation, I don't see that in the policy. Is there a process for?
Reporting violations of the policy,
Mhm.
the conduct policy?
The
It-
norms,
norms.
whatever, the
The norms,
norms.
that's what we talked about. I think you all talked about. I
That
can't
could be
remember what's
added
on.
in.
I can't remember what's on there. But the school board conduct policy has who you report it to and who, who it has the progression. And that's why I think we were suggesting that we look at both of those to make sure that there's some, they're in sync. So you report the violation. This is how it works in the board conduct policy. You report the violation. A member, if you believe somebody else has violated the policy or you go to your actually it does say you can actually talk to the member itself, but and first, and then go to the chair and vice chair, but then and if it's the chair, you go to the vice chair, vice versa. And then the vice chair, the leadership will then either talk to the person or then bring that concern to the full board. So there is a progression that we can work within, because I see in I'm trying to remember what the first violation on your norms was that the chair and vice chair would talk to the person, which now that I'm saying that out loud, that'll be a meeting and we might not want to have that. But nonetheless, we might want to look at that, because if 3 people get together.
So here's the first violation.
Oh, board chair or designee will have one-on-one conversation. But to Ms. White's point, there is no who do you report these violations to in the norms. But there is a scheme, there is a process for that in your policy, which you may want to mimic or not. We may want to tweak that when we're looking at both of them.
Yeah, and it does say here at the bottom, outline a policy for how violations are
reported.
Fair process. Okay. So we did say that we knew we needed to work on that. So Ms. White, you're spot on. We do need to determine what that is going to look like, and then incorporate it into those violation norms that we do have. So we'll leave those as like a placeholder, and then as we continue to build and looking at policies, we can then add that to it.
And can I add one more comment? So when we talking about the violations, that language is fine, but when we have board members that violate, the standards, conduct or whatever, violate these violations. In violation. I guess my point is, are we going to be willing to hold that board member accountable? Because what has happened in the past, we've had those violations. You could sanction that board member, but in oftentimes it never happened. So it was just repeated behavior. So this is just a thought I just put out there.
Yeah. Any other comments? Everybody good?
I just said food for thought.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think, we did mention in the governance training that it's really all about our commitment, right? What are we committed to doing? We're saying we're committing to these norms. We're committing to doing better as a governance team. Again, like I said, hopefully there will be no violations, because we're doing what we all want. And we're taking the time to try to put these things in place so that we don't have those issues, but at the same time, being committed to the work that we are starting. And with that being said, I just want to give a little summarization of the meeting and then talk about next steps. So what we've decided, well, what I, based on everything that we've gone through, through this meeting, we've all agreed that we're going to develop a strategic governance manual, and it will be inclusive of the 14 policies that we talked about when we first started, that were reviewed by the committee. We know that our goal is to look at policy. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. We want this manual to be, as Ms. Lilly said, a living document, but something that when a new board member comes on, it's like, here's your manual, it'll help you not have to go dig and look for policy and try to understand what it is, because the manual will be able to help you align those two things, especially for new board members and then current board members. And then we adopted the norms. We went through them and we adopted the norms. And so we're agreeing that we're going to apply, that they will be applied and referenced throughout the manual and are subject to revisions, because we know that I said every 4 years when school board term renews, because to Ms. White's point, you don't want to set, we can't set a norm for this board and then in 4 years expect to use the same norms. So we know that they'll be subject to revisions, and they'll also be subject to revisions just because in a matter of time, we didn't have, an opportunity to really go through and add some things that we want. So we said, we'll come back and do that. The manual is going to be a combination of the 3 samples that we received. We saw one that kind of made the most sense. And so some language, again, that will be incorporated into that manual. We'll be able to align it, as I stated earlier, with the Dreams for RPS strategic goals. So again, we're calling it our strategic governance manual. And we've also, and so with that, the next steps is, so I'm going to take all of what we worked on tonight, policies, the manual that, again, it's a combination, like I said, of the 3 that we received. And so I'm going to compile all of that information, the norms, the policies, and the actual manual. And I'm going to send that to you all tomorrow, along with Chair Burke. And if possible, I would really, really, really appreciate it, because we are super pressed for time. If you could get it back to me no later than Saturday morning, because we need to get it uploaded for board docs. And I think we all, we knew that it was going to be a little bit of crunch time just because of when we got started with our meetings. Our first meeting was June 10th. And then this one today, due to all the things that are happening. So definitely compressed for time, but I'm going to work diligently to add and incorporate all of what we worked on today. And I'll send that to you guys no later than tomorrow. And if you can just, it should be super easy to go through, because it's really just most of what we said, and some of the language will be stuff pulled from the Dreams for RPS and standard like board language that's applicable to just a basic, boilerplate manual. And then the other question that I have for you all before we end, and I know we talked a lot about on Monday, there's discussion about a policy committee, but I wanted to ask, and this was before I even realized that that was on the agenda, what do you all think about continuing this committee, just as, because we are just getting the manual up and running, and we know that we want to make changes so that we can be able to monitor it and be able, like, once policy is even being revised, we may need to add other things. Do you all think, or are you willing to continue this committee at least through the end of the year? And so we can then take a look at, as we rolling out the manual, what's working, what's not working. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I think the committee should continue and meet on a needed basis. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. But I think it goes hand in hand with policy and good governance. Because I just don't believe in reinventing the wheel. But I do think they go hand in hand, and this is something that has been really pressed upon us to, you know, put this together.
Ms. White?
I think that, well, I think you're gonna have separate, but if someone want to take my place, they are willing to. I know I have a lot of committees here. I don't know what committees are going to be. We have so many committees. We keep talking about committees, but some new ones are coming and some are being taken off. So I think somewhere we need to be, we need to get a little structured on our committees. I'm not
Agreed.
going to say that I'm going to, because when I put myself out there, I'm going to put myself out there completely. And I just don't want to say, well, it's just I'm on call for a policy committee. I'm on call for a governance committee. If we're going to do it together, then we do it together. But I know we do have a lot of policies, committees that want to come out, and I just need to know, you know, I guess we're going to discuss that Monday, dealing with the committees.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess at this time, we have no other business. I will send over, as I mentioned, the draft to you all by tomorrow. If you could take a look at it, get it back to me no later than Saturday morning so that we can submit it again to board docs. We can discuss during the presentation on Monday when we show, because it's actually going to be for an action item, because we had wanted to have a draft, but it just wasn't enough time to do that. So again, we will have it for discussion on Monday. And then I guess at that time, maybe with questions, we can decide how we'll move forward as a committee. But I will definitely make, known that we, would like to keep the committee meeting as on an as needed basis. And we can figure out what that looks like as time progresses.
I do have one question.
Yes,
since we're putting this together and we'll present it to the board, and then it'll go to VDOE, when does it take effect? After we vote, that it takes effect on the board to start doing the protocols, the norms, or after VDO agree that it's okay?
Yeah, I would think if we vote on it, that it goes into effect then, and it's really more, will be given a VDOE as here's this manual that's been created, and we are now in charge of how it gets executed. Would that be correct, Ms. Lilly? I would think that that's the way.
Unless VDOE has said something other than that,
yeah,
that would be exactly how it would go. Because if you adopt it, then certainly, you're, as Ms. Jones said, again, not to repeat, but you're presenting it as adopted.
Mm-hmm.
This is what was adopted.
So it will be effective in our first meeting in July, really.
July.
Right, and then which is a good time because it's the beginning of a new fiscal year for you. So, so it would be effective June 28th. Be adopted June 28th, and your first meeting in July would, you would expect to see adherence to it, or your first meeting whenever,
and which is why we would need to meet at least one more time. And again, we can do as needed, but we would need to meet again just to make sure that because it is adopted and rolled out, that we also incorporate those violations. So, because we can't, we don't want to have a document and then not have, there won't be any violations because it's going to be great. So thank y'all so much. I know that, this was longer than we anticipated and it was very short notice. We really, we're working to get this completed, but I really appreciate you all and your time. And I will see you on Monday, but I will send the document over to you all by tomorrow. Thank you.
Have a good evening,
job,
ladies.
team.
See you
Good
Monday.
job.
Bye-bye.
All right. Okay. Bye.
All right.
Great job.